Steelers' Art Rooney too facing criticism after revealing Ireland plan. The Pittsburgh Steelers will play the NFL's first regular season game in Ireland this season. How the team handles traveling to Europe will likely be a talking point as the Week 4 matchup with the Minnesota Vikings approaches. On Wednesday, Steelers president Art Rooney too shared during a team website interview with Missy Matthews that the Steelers plan to travel to Ireland late in the week. "I think we're planning to leave similar to what we did for the last international trip," Rooney told Matthews. "Probably leave on Thursday and practice there on Friday and Saturday and have the game on Sunday and fly out Sunday night. I don't think it'll be too much different from the last trip." Steelers Depot's Matthew Marksey immediately criticized Rooney for that tentative plan. Back in 2013, the Vikings flew to London on Monday in preparation for their game against the Steelers, Marksey wrote. Pittsburgh flew out on Thursday and plans to do the same thing again for the Ireland game. If the Steelers do, they may embarrass themselves on the Rooney's ancestral ground. Jet lag is a real thing, as is acclimating yourself to your environment. To support his argument, Marksey referenced quotes from Steelers defensive captain Cameron Hayward and former quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. For the 2013 Week 4 matchup versus the Vikings at Wembley Stadium in London, the Steelers flew over Thursday night and landed Friday morning. With the ability of hindsight, both players were very critical of the team's travel plans for their 2013 trip to London. In 2023, Roethlisberger said the Steelers were so exhausted and gassed during that London matchup. Last year, Hayward said the 2013 itinerary was the worst thing we did for that trip. Hayward also shared coaches fell asleep in meetings at practice Friday. Interestingly, the Steelers were the better team in the fourth quarter of their first international matchup. They outscored the Vikings by 10 points in the final quarter. In the same interview with Matthews, Rooney explained that one of the things he looks at when the NFL schedule comes out every year is the primetime matchups and where they are. Rooney stated he doesn't like the Steelers playing primetime West Coast games. "The only complaint that I have, with Pittsburgh's 2025 schedule, night game on the West Coast is always something that I prefer to avoid, and we got one of those this year," Rooney said. "These things happen." The Steelers will face the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday Night Football in Week 10. Rooney didn't explain why he prefers to avoid primetime West Coast games. Presumably, it's because flying back late or early to Pittsburgh is taxing on the players. If Rooney considers that difficult, though, it's very odd he doesn't approach a flight to Europe the same way. Flying east across multiple time zones is never easy. But Los Angeles to Pittsburgh is roughly a 5-hour flight over 3 time zones. Going from Pittsburgh to Dublin will be more than 7 hours and 5 time zones. Furthermore, the flight Rooney prefers to avoid takes place 6 days before the team's next game. If the Steelers take the red-eye flight to Dublin on Thursday night, the team will play the Vikings roughly 48 hours after landing. In Rooney's defense, he left open the possibility of changing the team's itinerary to Europe. Rodgers spoke highly of Aaron Rodgers' Steelers signing may spark reunion with former WR teammate, says Insider. Aaron Rodgers has still not confirmed his decision about whether or not he will be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the upcoming NFL season. Despite him being undecided on it, there are already hopes that the Steelers would bring in more wide receivers to help Rodgers if he ever chooses to play for Pittsburgh. Sports Illustrated Albert Breer was recently asked this very question, that is, if the Pittsburgh Steelers would invest in a wide receiver right before the next season starts. Breer pointed out that if the Steelers were indeed hoping to bring in another wide receiver, they might be able to trade with the Green Bay Packers, who have a bunch of WRs and might be eager to move one out of the team. If the Steelers want more after seeing those guys in OTAs, there is an interesting dynamic unfolding in Green Bay. The Packers drafted Matthew Golden in the first round and Savion Williams in the third. Both of those guys are going to make the team. They're also bringing back Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Dew, and Christian Watson is returning for injury. That's 6 guys before you even get to others, such as Mecole Hardman. It feels like the Packers could move at least one before the season. Dew and Watson were around Aaron Rodgers as rookies. Rodgers spoke highly of Dew back then. So if you put the pieces together, maybe there's a match. Albert Breer spoke about the Pittsburgh Steelers' WR options from the Green Bay Packers. Meanwhile, the entire NFL world is waiting for Aaron Rodgers to make up his mind about his future in the league. While many analysts are pointing out that the veteran quarterback will play for Pittsburgh, some are hinting that Rodgers may retire from the game altogether. On another note, Aaron Rodgers' maybe future team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, will be playing against his former team, the New York Jets, in their season opener. Before the Steelers play the Jets to officially open their season, the team would have already played 3 preseason games against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Carolina Panthers. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be eager to improve their record in the upcoming NFL season after finishing second in the AFC North with 10 wins and 7 defeats. Pittsburgh could not make it past the wild card round and lost to the Ravens, 28-14. Steelers trade for Kirk Cousins rumor gets $100 million update. Rather than constantly checking their watches to see if Aaron Rodgers has the time for them, wouldn't it be easier to simply call the Atlanta Falcons and trade for quarterback Kirk Cousins to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Maybe, but for a $100 million problem. Atlanta knows what it will eventually do, as their 2024 first-round draft pick Michael Penix Jr. has replaced Cousins atop Atlanta's depth chart. So why not shuffle him off to the Steel City? ESPN has shared why the Falcons are clinging to Cousins, citing stubbornness. Stubbornness likely had something to do with it, reporter Dan Graziano claimed. They signed Cousins for $100 million in guaranteed money 14 months ago, and team ownership wasn't thrilled about the idea of releasing him after doling out all that money for 14 not-so-great games in 2024. And when it came time to talk trade, the Falcons were asking interested teams to pay a significant portion of that remaining $37.5 million in guaranteed money. That meant those teams weren't offering the Falcons a return that Atlanta deemed worthwhile. Stubbornness and money. That's it. There are national reports that insist the Steelers are out on Cousins. We believe the coach Mike Tomlin-led club has leaked that thought while seeking leverage. Is Pittsburgh, which selected national champion Will Howard out of Ohio State in the 6th round of this year's NFL draft, really going to let him compete for a starting job? Is Mason Rudolph a playoff QB? Is Skylar Thompson? What was the point in Pittsburgh having traded a second-round pick to Seattle for wide receiver DK Metcalf if the Steelers weren't also going to find someone to throw to him? Of course. The Steelers did find that, they thought. But climbing into bed with the cold-footed 4-time MVP has yet to work, as the unsigned Rodgers keeps doing that thing he does. Drama. So the 36-year-old QB Cousins waits. For some reasons that have precious little to do with football,